Good afternoon and welcome along to Destination Wellbeing. My guest this afternoon is Mary McStay, and Mary has been working for many years in the field of personal development and with different angles to that. And as we go through our show today, Mary and I'll chat about, I suppose, what personal development means for each of us, because it is personal development, isn't it? And it's not no one level fits all. So tell us a little bit more about the work that you do, Mary.
Well, as you said, Joanne, it is, and thank you very much for inviting me in to have a chat with you.
You're welcome.
Personal development specialist, I suppose, is the broad title that I use. I've always worked in the field of personal development. I've always worked with adults, young people, young people from the age of 16 up, and in the area of personal development. I have had my time teaching and lecturing in other subjects, but personal development work was something that always attracted me. And the model that I work with, I think, is particularly interesting because it works with the practical techniques that we can use in our day-to-day living for our work and our personal lives, and within the context of being a whole person. And when I say whole, I mean whole as in yourself, but also right across your life, because obviously when you go into work, or when you're looking after, if you're full-time at home, or if you're looking after people, you're working as well, but it is your person who is there. So personal development really is one of those subjects which has massive interest for every single individual if they want to be the best that they can be.
I think we've grown up, I suppose, with a bit of a fear of that, because people have thought about, oh no, but everybody else has to go first, and we've that ethos. But when we bring it back, actually, really, unless we're there for ourselves, we can't be there for anyone else.
Well, it is a cultural thing. There is no doubt. I mean, I'm part of an international network of licensed trainers in personal development. Now, the great advantage to being part of that international network, I have colleagues in New Zealand, Australia, India, very remote parts of India, right up to Denmark, very advanced urban areas in Denmark. Of course, we've got, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. So we can do, and it's the longest running personal development program globally. It's Springboard, and we can carry out research. And one of the things that we have discovered, because the reason I mention all of those places is, regardless of your cultural background, the issues which present as blocks to our confidence, because it is confidence which is at the core of our being in touch with ourselves. The issues which block it are the same, whether you're living in a remote part of India, or whether you're living in a very advanced part of somewhere like Sweden or Denmark, which are considered to be countries that are very liberal and very well advanced. So the human being, no matter where they are, they're going to encounter the same issues that will put a block in the way of their confidence. And actually, confidence is at the core of what we're doing, whether it's in relationships, at work, in our personal lives, in our dealings with people going in and out of a shop. It doesn't matter where we go, we take that with us.
Yes.
So it's about the quality of that, really.
Yeah.
That's at the core of it.
Yes.
Yeah,
And how we can develop that and use it to our advantage. Yes.
And to everyone else's advantage. Because one of the things about confidence is that it's not something you can develop on your own. No. You need other people. You really do need to be building up other people, and you need, because you will get that back again, and you need to be looking at your own level. It only works when it's in balance.
Yes.
And that, I think, is something that we always need to be tweaking. It's a bit like getting the correct position on the dial when you're trying to, well, in the days before digital, we were trying to get the radio.
Yes.
If it's off slightly, there's going to be interference.
Yes.
So if you let any of those feelings that would have a corrosive effect on your balanced confidence, if you let them get in the way, obviously it's going to make the confidence level dip a little bit. Rocket science, it's not, to use a cliche, but it is very simple to get back on track again.
Yeah, to work with that,
Yes,
and to look
yeah.
at how that's all fair out and going on. And I love how you say, you know, we need to support ourselves. We need to be there supporting others. So it becomes a network, really. And I know through your boot camps and things like that's where people will have the support of others who are there as well.
Yeah, because I think there was a time when people thought, oh, personal development is for people, or confidence building is for people, you know, who need to do a wee bit of work on themselves. There is not one human being on the planet that doesn't have to do a little bit of work on themselves, because they get out of bed every morning. You know, they live and they breathe and they do, and we need always to be keeping ourselves on track.
Yeah.
And it's not about the big issues. They, of course, can be looked at, but it's about the day-to-day management of ourselves and the basic principles. I mean, on the Right to Be Me, on the training program, The Right to Be Me, and I'm in the process of writing the book, The Right to Be Me, and I'm, you know, the strapline for the book is the 5 fundamental principles of confidence building, because there are only 5, and when we look at I mean, it'll be a little pocket book that you can use. There'll be a journal aspect to it that you can use. Anyone who's interested in their own development, or in their hobbies, or in their sport, in their politics, in their professional lives, in their voluntary work, name me one area of life that doesn't really require to be looking at this aspect.
Yeah, it's such a broad tool, and I know whenever we look at, you know, as you mentioned earlier, every area is relevant, and we might be, I think confidence can change as well, or certainly that would be my experience, that you might be very confident in one area of life, and you may be the person who in work feels that, you know, they've got it sorted in one sense, and then maybe find it very difficult to communicate to people on a friendship level or things like that. So it's about finding the area that you need the work in, really, isn't it?
And it may be that you're not even aware of it. You know, some people will come on a boot camp, or they'll work with me indeed one-to-one, and they may come forward and they'll say, well, I just want to do some presentation skills, because I do voice coaching and professional development, focused executive development for leadership, and they will step forward and they will have a very specific area that they want to look at. Now, it doesn't take us very long to get to looking at confidence and what that means. And recently I've decided to introduce an element into training and into working with people on a one-to-one. And what I do is I bring to the table the understanding of what a word actually is. Now, this word confidence has a Latin base, and it comes from 2 words, and the 2 words in Latin are cum and fides. Translated into English, cum means with, fides is faith or trust or belief. Now, if I am talking about not having confidence, like, you know, before we did the interview, I said to you, God, I'm not really comfortable in front of a camera. I don't really believe, you see, I don't have the faith in me to be able to do it properly, the interview, in front of a camera, because I don't like looking at myself. Well, you teach what you need to learn. Yeah. But my point is that when we understand the language of what it is we're speaking, then it gives us an in on how we can better manage that. Like a great one is when on the boot camp, or indeed on the full course, we look at feelings and the role of feelings in behaviour, which we look at in a particularly accessible way on the Right to Be Me. And we look at what a feeling is, and we look at how we use even the language of feeling. You made me feel such and such, or you made me. And in English, we are very disadvantaged, because we don't understand through saying you make me feel that really doesn't make any sense, because the only person who can do the feeling is yourself. So I can feel nervous because I'm being interviewed on camera, but I cannot say, Joanne, you made me feel nervous because you asked me to sit in front. It's the feeling will only come from within yourself.
I often would use the analogy where if you if we were sitting here now and we had a person who came into the room with us and there was a group of people sitting and they started to insult or, you know, throw out insults, each one of us will react completely differently, depending on where we are in ourselves. So we've got the idea that if some of us might laugh and say, he's an Eilidh, just get him out. Somebody else might say, oh God, why was he insulting me? Someone else might start to cry, somebody else might get angry and retaliate in that way. Yet the words that the person has used has been the same the whole way through. So it really is, it's about our personal, it's how it resonates within ourselves.
Yes, and that's at a feeling level, but I think at an intellectual level or at a thinking level, it can be managed in another way. Because when we understand that there are different ways to manage situations, that we can either, I mean, the impulse will be a very strong reaction to cry or to shout or to, I mean, that is a very strong reaction. But there are other ways when we use our thinking, we might decide, well, we can engage with it, or laugh at it, or so there are different places within ourselves that we can actually manage a challenging situation.
And I think that comes with having the right tools.
Again, the right tools.
It's the right tools and the awareness of ourselves.
And the awareness. And you see, it is the Right to Be Me and Springboard and Speak Volumes have all a very solid educational base. It's information that is provided in a very solid way. You get material that you can take and read and use for yourself. The great thing about them is they're developmental as well. So that you use them, but not only use them, but you can take them and you can, I've seen teachers, for example, coming on the Right to Be Me, and they can see tools that they can then engage their students with, which is great, because actually they're the people we want to be doing an awful lot of this work.
The next generation, a lot of that work happens with the younger, the better, I think, really. It's,
if they're open to it, and yes, yes, definitely.
And
they are more open to it when they're younger.
And I think one of the challenges that a lot of young people face when we've moved on to them is the negative image that's given to confidence and again, it's a cultural, very much maybe a cultural thing, is now, she's very overconfident, or you don't want to get too big for your boots. But there's a quiet confidence that can come in as well, which I like to remind young people about, that confidence isn't always the most confident person in the room isn't always the most extrovert or the most out there person.
No. But you see, this is, I think, where it is important to understand a lot more than just the, what it looks like flat on the page, because we have things that we have to look at. The fundamental tools are going to be looking at self-esteem, and within that we're going to be looking at temperaments. You'll hear people too saying, oh, it's okay for you, you were born that way. Everybody arrives on the planet with exactly the same things in place, except their temperament. Temperament is the only thing that's different, and there are only 4 temperaments. So when we get a handle on what our temperament is, that will give us a place to move forward from. And so we're looking at self-esteem, and then we're looking at feelings. And what feelings, that's another one of the areas that we really need to understand. What are feelings? Where do they come from? What do they do to us physically? What are they doing to us in our thinking? And then we've got to look at the role that a feeling plays in behaviour. And in behaviour, we're looking at a broad spectrum, and we do have a lot of control over how we behave. And we have to look at, where do we want to go with our behaviour? We can behave in whatever way we choose to behave, but do we realise that we have choices and that we've made a choice? And then we have to look at how we communicate, because that's another one of the basic tools. How do we get this out? So we're looking at the inner work, and then we bring that forward and we put it out there. And then the final fundamental is, how do we present all of this? So these, those building blocks are firm, they're in place, and it's from that particular place that you then move on to, I suppose, refine it in whatever area you feel that
the
is
individual
necessary.
needs
Yeah,
for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it will change across life as well, because the only thing you need to do this kind of work is life experience. And thankfully, you know, that's something that, for as long as we're breathing, we'll always have life experience.
We'll always have life experience, yes.
We will.
And there's no, and it's also never too late.
Oh, not
you know, it's never too late or never too early to do any of it.
I remember once it was run through college. We were running a personal development course, a bit like The Right to Be Me, and there was a woman on it who was, and it's for men and women. I mean, I work with sports people and men who are developing their careers, but there was a woman who was 82, and she came along. It was a very intensive course. Intensive in the sense that the commitment to it was 12 weeks. 1 day a week for 1 day a week for 12 weeks. And she was attending this course and missed not one day. She had to get 2 buses in order to get to the venue, and it was very reassuring and very heartening. But anyway, we got to the end of the course. I was working with another trainer, and we get to the end of the course, and this woman came forward and she said, "I just want you to know that that is one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And it's great to know that all of these years I have not been going insane." And I actually was taken aback by that, because, and then I had a conversation with her, and she said, you know, before this I would talk about my values and what's important to me and how important it is to look after other people and to develop myself in the way that she did, and she did remarkable things in her life. But her family never really took her seriously, because they would, and how did she know that? Because they would complain if, you know, oh, it's 6 o'clock and the dinner's not ready, or how come you didn't buy? So they weren't really treating her as this whole person. And when that gave me a lot to think about, because I thought, yeah, like you say, it's never too late. But what I really admired in her is that was an example of somebody who had a very strong core inner confidence. She did believe in herself, and that came from her fundamental value system, because that's where you start. That's where it starts. And so that was very reassuring. I mean, there's another one comes to mind. There was a woman who, I think she might have been about 58 or something. I mean, I mention that because she did personal development training, and then she thought, you know something, I need to do what I've always thought about doing. So we worked a little bit on what this was, and she said, I always wanted to study law. I said, well, you know, why don't you go and study law then? Oh no, I couldn't. I mean, all our ones say I'm too old and I couldn't possibly. Anyway, at 62, she enrolled to do law at Queen's. And she was one of their top students. And in fact, the other students, who were of course all in their, you know,
early
20s, yeah, they all looked to her for guidance and support and advice, and to take to the lecturers all the challenging questions that they were a bit too timid to ask. And the lecturers in their evaluation and professor had said she was one of the best students they ever had. And she came out with her law degree. Now, her motivation was she wanted to do it, she definitely had to do it, and she wanted to prove to her family that she could do it.
Yeah, which is amazing. And you know, I think the key thing that comes in there too is the life experience. The life experience that she had all came together in something that gave her...
I mean, they're examples of people who've gone on to do things. I was working at a university in Dublin, where I've worked at a few of them, doing springboard personal and professional development. And the commitment to that is 4 days, 1 day a month for about 4 months. Great information. It's like, I would call it the big sister or brother of The Right to Be Me. And there were a number of people on it who were working, because it is very difficult working at that level when you've got, when you've got family, when you live very far away from your source of work, and everything that goes with that. And there was a woman came to me towards the end of the programme, and she said, you know, I have decided I have a very good job at this university, and she did have a very good job. Can you imagine? Very prestigious job. I have decided that I am leaving my work because I want to be full-time at home with my children. And I thought, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because here was another example of somebody having the confidence to touch base with her values and to do something that actually chimed with her value system. And that for her meant moving away from a career path that I suppose other people were saying, oh, it's very prestigious and, you know, you'll go far and all of that, she thought. But she realised that her heart was somewhere else.
And I think that's one of the approaches that I love is where it comes back to the heart. Because the heart, you know, it really is, we live a lot in our heads, but actually our heart and our gut feeling is what tells us where things sit right or where they don't. And it's really learning to trust those feelings. Back to the meaning of confidence is that belief and that trust in yourself, that you've got that you're allowing what feels right to be right.
My concern is for people who are, or for the individual who is doing something that somebody else has told them they should do. You know, this is Johnny. Johnny's 14, you know. Hey, this is Johnny. Johnny's going to be a doctor when he grows up. Or this is Mary, you know, she's going to go to such and such a place when she... And it is, like, that really is painful to listen to, because Johnny or Mary, when they get to this stage of adulthood, when they want to do what is within them to do, maybe that's not their agenda at all. And we know where that goes.
And I mean, that translates even through career, through relationships, every aspect where so many people feel that they need to be where they are because of the expectation of everybody else, and yet they're the person in the middle, miserable, without realising that nobody else will really be happy.
Well, they may not even realise that they're miserable themselves, but ask anybody living with them.
And they'll know.
And they will tell you just how miserable they are.
And how difficult it can be to get that awareness to yourself. But once it comes, it's like light bulbs going off everywhere.
You get the flashes. You do. You definitely do. And it takes a lot of courage. Which is part of confidence, but it does take a lot of courage to be able to grow into your own skin. You know, I often refer to the right to be me as, you know, finding your place within your own skin, or indeed weeding out the garden. You know, how many times have we had to declutter and to move on from, you know, we don't need that anymore. We really don't need that.
I love the analogy of weeding out the garden, and I like to add into that one where if we go out and we pluck off all the leaves, the garden will look nice and clear for a day or two, but unless we do the digging and actually get to the roots, then they're going to appear back. And I think sometimes we fix parts of our lives, sort of brush them over, or, you know, instead of filling in the cracks with polyfiller, we put a lick of paint over the top of them and pretend they're going to go away until such times as they start appearing again. And we can use that in our lives as well. But the confidence building boot camps, the Right to Be Me and Springboard, allow that opportunity to go that bit deeper and to look at the roots.
If you want to.
If you want. I mean, look on the surface either.
We might as well be honest about it, you know. Each individual will have their own reason for wanting to do this particular type of work, and that's okay. I mean, one of the great things is nobody needs to know why you're doing it, because it's an education and developmental process. So you can come along and take part and go away and use it whatever way you want. You know, you're beholden to no one but yourself, and that's what it's about. That is what it's about. And realising that you have choices, and that's fine. If you choose to go for that, go for that. If you choose to leave it, leave it. that's fine. That is really
Yeah,
fine.
everybody will work to their own pace and their own level. Won't they? And I know you've one of the confidence building boot camps, and that's a 1 day?
Well, the Right to Be Me is a full course, and it doesn't suit everybody to commit to a full course. So what I decided to do was to slice it up and run 2 boot camps from it. Now, a boot camp, as the title would suggest, is a boot camp. It's a 1 day power hosing of information and acquiring skills and tools for building confidence, and you can apply it to anything. I've had people on who want to take up a sport or want to do better in their sport, or they want to approach education, or they want to deal with something that's gone on for them in their lives. It could be personal or professional. That's fine. And on the 1 day boot camp, they will get the basic fundamentals. So it's like vacuum packing part of the bigger course. And so that's one, and that one's happening. There is one coming up. We're running them regularly through the hub here in Newry, and the next one's happening on Saturday the 11th of October. And the other boot camp is communication. Speaking in a clear way, being understood, and I'm talking about voice work as well, but very little of that in it. It's more about being able to say no when we need to say no, and being able to handle criticism, being able to give it and receive it in a way which does not diminish any one person, including yourself.
Yeah. I think one of the things when people maybe look at a communication course, it can instantly go, oh, well, I don't want to run workshops, or I don't want to do that, but we're communicating all of the time.
Oh, gosh,
so
yeah.
it's well, that individual communication.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, it's not for someone who decides that they want to do a presentation for lots of people, whilst it will help with that, but our daily communication is so vitally important, and how we communicate with those closest to us. And are we able to allow our needs to be known, and are we looking after our own needs?
Well, principally I would say the latter. Like, are we looking after ourselves? And it's also about looking at, do we really need, it's cultural as well, but do we really need to be criticising? How often do we need to be doing that? And are we doing it in a way that builds up a situation or diminishes an individual? Because it is not about individuals. It is about a task or an issue, or it is not about a person. It is about a thing. But the giving and the receiving, I mean, they're the 2 areas that we look specifically at. And I would actually say we probably don't need to criticise as much as we may criticise, and we don't, listen to people. Just listen. Listen to the language, the words they're using, because I have to listen to myself in order to find out what's going on inside, because the words, think about where a word comes from. A word is coming directly from your mouth. And your mouth is the vehicle that consumes food. So you put food through that, and you also put your thoughts through that as well.
The ideas.
And it is the thought meeting the feeling, and then it comes out. I think that's a nice image to think about when we're thinking about words. A word is a very, very powerful piece of equipment.
And the words that we use to others, and I think as well the words that we allow others to use to us is vitally important. It's do we accept, and is that where the confidence comes in, that we actually have to be able to step out of situations where we feel we're not being respected, and that the respect's not coming back and forward. So it's learning that whole approach.
It is. But all of this is for the good stuff as well. I mean, it is about growing within yourself, and it is about being the best that you can be, and living the life that you are actually meant to live.
I love that. I love that as a summary to what we've talked about. So it's living the life that we want to be and being yourself and being, I love that whole idea of developing ourselves and that. And that's so the first of those, the closest to our show today is this coming Saturday, the 11th of October.
Yes.
But all of the details are available on your website and through the hub as well?
Through the hub. So you could contact the hub or contact me directly. You'll find me on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, and of course I'll leave a few leaflets here so people can pick up a leaflet.
And I'll be happy to share through my Facebook and that as well. So I know the hub are very active with promoting all of their details. And for anybody who's not aware of where the hub is situated in Uri, it is above Deneen Office Supplies on John Mitchell Place there. So, and a fantastic, lovely, inspiring building. It's beautiful. So, Mary, thank you so much for your time today and for joining me. It's been great to have you in. And thank you to our viewers for watching in. All of our previous Destination Wellbeing shows are available through our Vadio page, vadio.ie/destination.
Immerse yourself in the world of music, workshops, crafts, exhibitions and literary events with Banbridge District Council's Autumn Art programme from the 8th to the 31st of October. Enjoy storytelling and poetry, pop-up arts, an open mic session and a range of children's activities. Don't miss the craft fair on Saturday the 25th of October. See banbridge.gov.uk for details.